Murdered on her own doorstep.
Margaret Whyte.
Mrs. Peggy Whyte.
Margaret Whyte.
Mrs. Margaret Whyte died in a bomb blast thought to have been the work of a loyalist group.
The bomb went off at about 2:15 this morning. The young police constable and Mrs. Whyte were standing at the front of the terrace house. The bomb, thought to contain between 10 and 15 pounds of explosives, had been left in a hold-all bag under the front window. Mrs. Whyte had apparently returned to the house a short time earlier. She had become suspicious of the hold-all and contacted the police.
The police were came very quickly. 2 policemen went alongside the hedge, 1 came up the passage, and they shone their lights. When I seen them, I said to wife, let's get in. And we were just turning. I had turned, walked 1 step when I was blown up the staircase. My wife was killed instantly where she stood.
The bombing came almost exactly a year after another attack on the Whites' home, when a loyalist lost a leg as a bomb exploded prematurely in an entry behind the Whites' home.
And when he blew himself up, my mother and my brother and my father run out in the entry and seen him lying there. And immediately my dad sent my brother Jude into the house to get a pillow and a blanket. My mother placed it under his head, held his hand, put a blanket over him, tried to comfort him. Now the guy lived, he lost his leg and his arm, and his face was damaged. But that was a decency of my mother.
No, I've actually been racking my brains to try and find this out since last April, and I can't honestly. The only thing I might suggest is that we are a young Catholic family, and many of my brothers, for example, are engaged to be married to young Protestant girls. This might be a reason. Otherwise, we're living in a fairly, I suppose, vulnerable area, and that University Street is, well, it's not in the safe confines, for example, of West Belfast, and that might be some reason. I mean, frankly, I'm lost to suggest a real reason.
Did you not consider moving house after the attack last year?
I would certainly have moved. I would have moved to Knocklade if there had been a house. But my wife said back to me, she said, why should we move? You're only giving in to something that we disagree with. I was a believer in lightning only strikes once. But I have been living in fear this past year.
Well, my mum was like the central linchpin in the family. She worked 2 jobs. She had 10 children. And when she went, the chain sort of broke. I believe that there was collusion. So do with loyalist paramilitaries that attack our house. I mean, they were told there's some paramilitary IRA guy or something living in that house. And that's why they bombed it. So they were given false information for a start.
No one has ever been convicted of Margaret Whyte's murder. Years later, the Historical Inquiries team opened up the case, but that investigation came to a dead end.
And what do you think about the person or the people who planted that bomb that killed your mum?
The right thing is, what my mum and dad taught me in my faith, in my Catholic faith, was you have to learn to forgive. And if you're wrong, you learn to say sorry.
And would you like someone just to say sorry to you?
I would like someone to admit there was collusion in your mum's murder. There was a blind eye turned to a lot of things. And we're sorry for that.